Now, Lash Legend being added to the SmackDown roster is a good thing. She cannot be the only one, though. You got plenty of women right now who are ready, I think, for that call-up whenever it comes. Jordynne Grace, Sol Ruca, and Zarya. Maybe you hold off on all of them and add all the members of Fatal Influence. But that division needs as much help right now as it can get. And these women are not all going to be pushed on day one. It takes time to get the audience familiar with them before they're even ready to be in the mix. It's not like, hey, they need Jordynne Grace and they need this person and that person and that person. And on day one, they're going to be feuding with Jade Cargill. Like, you got to take time to build them up. Now is the time that they should be bringing them up to begin that process. But I no longer have faith in the people who write this show to even know what to do with these women. Some of them are going to be fine. You know, Sol Ruca is going to be fine because, you know, they look at Sol Ruca and they know that she's a star. And she's blonde, which always helps in this company. I know Vince is not there anymore, but that always helps. But I don't have the faith that they are going to know what to do with all of these women if they call them up. The state of SmackDown right now is a complete disgrace. That show last Friday was a complete disgrace. SmackDown has largely been bad this year, but it is as bad right now as it has been at any other point that I have seen in 2025, save for the U.S. title open challenges. And those are just matches with no story. I mean, they could tell stories within the matches themselves, but there's no connective tissue here. Like, Sami Zayn would get a new challenger each week and have a killer match. Ilya Dragunov just returned after a 13-month layoff, and he goes out there each week. No story. He just goes out there and has banger matches. And it's been the best part of the show. But is it any wonder the show still sucks? Like, what is it the WWE fans online love to say to the AEW sickos? It's not about banger matches. It's about story, right? Where's the story? I could ask the same thing right now of SmackDown. Where's the story? Where's the story that is supposed to reel me in and get me excited to see what comes next and tune into the show next week? Where's the robust main event scene? It's like a vast wasteland. We've got Cody Rhodes each week coming out on TV in his suit and asking us, what do you want to talk about? I think it's time we talk about how awful their show is and what they're going to do to try to fix it. There has not been a WWE draft since April of last year. Late last year, they implemented this transfer portal that they kept open for months with seemingly no plan on what to do or, when to end it. I think they were just flying by the seat of their pants. But a transfer portal is the way to go with these things because the draft sucks. Or I should say WWE's way of doing the draft sucks. And I'm perfectly fine if they never bring it back, but the transfer window would be a way for them to reshuffle the rosters a little bit and give us more interaction between the two general managers. I think they should have done one over the summer. I think 2 per year is the way to go. And you do one over the summer and you do another one at the beginning of the very end of the year, beginning of the new year. But they've done none of that. People move from brand to brand with no fanfare, no rhyme or reason, no explanation. And even that's only every now and then. The imbalance between the two rosters, especially on the women's side, is very noticeable. And it's not sustainable. SmackDown is suffering because of it and because the people they have writing the show are creatively bankrupt. Someone said this on the stream the other night, and I loved it. We've gone from the Ruthless Aggression era to the Ruthless Depression era. Or even better, the Ruthless Regression era. This show is going backwards. It's regressing. It's getting worse by the week. That is the era that we are now living in. And it's shameful because it doesn't need to be that way. When I see Julia out there losing her championship in 90 seconds, and I find myself agreeing with the decision. When I look at it as a mercy killing, you hit a fucking deer on the road and you put a bullet in its head to put it out of its misery. When I look at Julia's U.S. title run that way, something is very wrong. When I see Julia in the NXT, I sound like Bret Hart now. When I see Julia in NXT earlier this year wrestling Stephanie Vicaire in that winner-take-all match they had at Roadblock, and I see Julia out there on Friday being pinned in 90 seconds like some enhancement talent. Something is very wrong. This is not the same person. And I don't want to hear from people, oh, well, Stephanie learned English and Julia didn't. When you could easily go back 2 years ago and you can find clips and listen to Julia speak. She can speak English just fine, you fools. Okay, that wasn't the issue here. The issue was 100% with the way in which they used her and booked her. And now she's damaged goods. And they have to start from scratch with her all over again. Move her to Raw, move her to NXT, whatever, but they have to start all over again now. When I see Solo Sikoa and the MFTs on my TV screen, oh my fucking God, it should be the MFGs, not the MFTs, my fucking God, with their faces painted like the circuses in town, and I realize that I still have no idea why JC Mateo is here. Who is he? Why did Solo bring him in? Why is he so subservient to Solo Sikoa? I could say the same for all three of the Tongans. No character development whatsoever, no reason to invest in these people, to love them, to hate them, to know what their motivations are. Why should I care? Solo's a funny guy. But when he's on screen with his family, they bore me to tears. Whether it's the MFTs or whether it's this stuff lately on Raw with Roman and the Usos, all I see is a sad attempt to piggyback off the success that they had with the Bloodline. WWE is desperately trying to cling to the last vestiges of this Bloodline story and milk this shit for all it's worth, and it's sad. I have to give a shout out to Graham Matthews. He's a friend of the show. He actually just wrote a whole column about this for Bleacher Report, about how the Bloodline story has run out of gas. And brother, that tank has been on empty for months now. The Bloodline story peaked when Sami Zayn put a chair in Roman's back at the Royal Rumble. That was 2 years ago. Almost 3. And then we had Cody trying to finish his story, and we got the big epic conclusion with the final boss stuff in Philadelphia last year. That was the end. It's been all downhill from there. Because this thing is open-ended. They keep adding new family members to them. They could keep this going forever. Sure. But that doesn't mean that it's ever going to be as good as it used to be. It's just a watered-down version. You know, I equate the Bloodline today to a television show that peaked in season 4. And now they're in season 9. Like, some of the stars have left the show. They've moved on. The ratings are down from what they used to be, but the network keeps renewing for another season because they don't have any more original programming. They're devoid of any good ideas. That's where we're at right now in WWE. Where they turn John Cena heel in his final year because it'll make for a great moment, and not because they had any real plan on how to follow up on it. Where champions reign for months and months on end with very few title defenses so they can boast about the number of days that they've held these titles. And Tiffany Stratton can go undefeated for most of the year with no real credible challengers to work with. And the tag team division can go from being the hottest thing on Friday nights to the weakest. Where Santos Escobar is trotted out there with Legado del Fantasma to lose every single week and nobody gives a shit. And when he decides to leave, they throw a bunch of money at him to keep him around. And we still haven't seen him back on TV. Where Carmelo Hayes can be the number 1 draft pick last year. And this year, you wonder if it was all just a dream. Winter is coming, but the product is cold right now. And they won't be able to use John Cena's retirement as some sort of creative crutch to lean on after next month. I hope they have something real good up their sleeve for Rumble season.